the Wicked Witch of the West is a fictional character and the most significant antagonist in L. Frank Baum's children's book The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. In Baum's subsequent Oz books, it is the Nome King who is the principal villain. The Wicked Witch of the West is rarely even referred to again after her death in the first book. The witch's most popular depiction was in the classic 1939 movie based on Baum's book, where she was played by Margaret Hamilton. The film adaptation's depiction of the Witch of the West having green skin was incorporated into later works featuring the character, including Gregory Maguire's revisionist Oz novel Wicked, The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West and its musical adaptation Wicked. The 2013 film was The Great and Powerful, and the spring 2014 story arc of the television series Once Upon a Time. Books by L. Frank Baum. The Wicked Witch of the West is the malevolent ruler of the Winkie country. Her castle is described as beautiful instead of being the sinister fortress shown in the movie. In all versions, she is seriously aquaphobic. The Wicked Witch of the West was not related to the Wicked Witch of the East, but leagued together with her, the Wicked Witch of the South and Mumbai to conquer the land of Oz and divide it among themselves, as recounted in L. Frank Baum's Dorothy and the Wizard in Oz. She shows no interest in the death of the Eastern Witch, and all she cares about is obtaining the silver shoes which will increase her power. W. W. Denlow's illustrations for The Wonderful Wizard of Oz depict her as a paunched old hag with 3 pigtails and an eye patch. L. Frank Baum himself specified that she only had one eye, but that it was as powerful as a telescope, enabling the witch to see what was happening in her kingdom from her castle windows. Other illustrators, such as Paul Granger, placed her eye in the center of her forehead, as a cyclops. Usually, she is shown wearing an eye patch, however some illustrations incorrectly show her with 2 eyes. Most of her power resides in the creatures she controls. She has a pack of wolves, a swarm of bees, a flock of crows and an army of Winkies. She possesses the enchanted golden cap, which compels the winged monkeys to obey her on 3 occasions. First, the witch commanded the creatures to help her enslave the Winkies and to seize control of the western part of the land of Oz. Second, she made the winged monkeys drive the wizard out of the Winkie country, when he attempted to overthrow her. When Dorothy Gale and her companions were sent by the wizard to destroy her, the witch attacked them with a pack of 40 great wolves, a flock of 40 crows, a swarm of black bees, and a group of Winkie slaves. Each of these attempts were thwarted, but the protagonists are eventually subdued by the witch's third and final permitted use of the winged monkeys. Nevertheless, the old witch cannot kill Dorothy because the girl is protected by the good witch of the North's kiss. She therefore settles for enslaving Dorothy, and tries to force the cowardly lion into submission by starving him, though Dorothy sneaks him food. Upon seeing the silver shoes on the girl's feet, the Wicked Witch decides to steal them, and thereby acquire even more power. When she succeeds in acquiring 1 silver shoe by making Dorothy trip over an invisible bar, the little girl angrily throws a bucket of water onto the Wicked Witch. This causes the old witch to melt away. L. Frank Baum did not explain precisely why water had this effect on her, nor did he ever imply that all evil witches could be likewise destroyed. However, the Wicked Witch Mumbai is similarly disposed of in The Lost King of Oz, and the Wicked Witch Singra is clearly afraid of the same fate in the early chapters of The Wicked Witch of Oz. The most likely explanation of Baum making water the Achilles heel of these witches is the long-held belief amongst major religions that water is effective for purifying the soul and combating evil. The witch did not carry a broom in the novel, but rather an umbrella, which she uses on one occasion to strike Dorothy's dog Toto. Her nature is a volatile and yet somewhat cowardly one. Despite her immense power, she avoids face-to-face contact with her enemies, and is frightened of Dorothy at first when she sees the girl wearing the silver shoes. She is also afraid of the dark in Baum's original story for reasons never revealed. For that reason, the witch never tried to steal the silver shoes while Dorothy was sleeping. Despite her fear of water and the dark, the Wicked Witch of the West was one of the most powerful witches in all of Oz. In ensuing Oz books, her power is described as having been so great that even Glinda the Good Witch of the South feared her. Versions in performance media, 1910 film. The 1910 silent film The Wonderful Wizard of Oz features a character similar to the Wicked Witch of the West. identified in intertitles as Momba the Witch. In the film, Momba has an unspecified hold over the wizard, who promises his crown to anyone who can release him from Momba's power. Momba captures Dorothy and her companions, evoking the events in Baum's original novel, and is destroyed when Dorothy throws a bucket of water over her. 1914 film, Momba's likeness and costume. In the 1914 silent film, His Majesty, the Scarecrow of Oz, is based on Denlo's illustrations of the Wicked Witch of the West, 1939 film. In the 1939 version of The Wizard of Oz, Margaret Hamilton plays the Wicked Witch of the West as a stooped, green-skinned witch dressed in a long black dress with a black pointed hat. She does not wear an eye patch like in the novel. This representation of the Wicked Witch has become a standard for what witches resemble and an archetype of human wickedness. While this relationship is not mentioned in Baum's books, in the movie, the witch is the sister of the Wicked Witch of the East. In fact, she appears in the film much earlier on than in Baum's original novel, demanding the Munchkins reveal who killed her sister, not long after Dorothy's arrival in Oz. She is described by Glinda, the Good Witch of the North, not the South as in the book, as worse than the other one. Therefore, the witch's role is made much more prominent than in the novel, as she seeks revenge against Dorothy for killing her sister, even though it was an accident. However, as soon as the witch is reminded of the ruby slippers, all interest in her sister's death vanishes and all she cares about are obtaining her slippers, which will enable her to conquer Oz. She is more menacing than her literary counterpart, making Dorothy too afraid to ever lose her temper with the witch. She makes sure that Dorothy knows her power when Dorothy meets the Scarecrow by throwing a ball of fire at them, after which he waits to see if Dorothy is too afraid to go on. Before Dorothy and her friends get to the city, the witch casts a sleeping spell over a field of poppies the group must pass through. Glinda remotely counteracts the spell with a snowfall. The Wicked Witch then flies on her broom over the Emerald City, demanding Dorothy's surrender, and the wizard demands the destruction of the witch, with her broom as proof, in exchange for granting the wishes of Dorothy and her companions. Unlike Baum's original depiction, the Wicked Witch sends the winged monkeys as the first wave of attack. The golden cap is not mentioned, but, after the failure of her poppy spell, the witch does halt and then angrily cast away a costume piece that could be considered the cap and was mentioned as her wishing cap in the original shooting script. She is killed when Dorothy throws the water when she lights a fire to threaten the Scarecrow. There is no prior mention of the Wicked Witch's vulnerability to water in the movie, save for a split second before the water actually douses her when she screams, "Don't throw that water." After the Wicked Witch of the West is dead, her soldiers are glad to be free of the Wicked Witch of the West and quote "Hail to Dorothy." The Wicked Witch is dead. The character ranks number 4 in the American Film Institute's list of the 50 best movie villains of all time, making her the highest-ranking female villain, as well as placing 90th on Empire magazine's 100 greatest movie characters of all time. Hamilton's other role in this film is the witch's Kansas sepia tone sequence character, Miss Amira Gulch, newly created for the film by screenwriter Noel Langley. She arrives on her bicycle at the farm and said to Uncle Henry, "Mr. Gale, I'd like to speak with you and your wife right away." Since Dorothy's last name is also Gale, this implies that Henry is her blood uncle, and Aunt Em is his wife. Em tells her off, saying to her, "Amira Gulch, just because you own half the county doesn't mean that you have the power to run the rest of us. For 23 years I've been dying to tell you what I thought of you. And now, well, being a Christian woman, I can't say it." Dorothy saw her again outside the window in the tornado. At that moment, Miss Gulch becomes the Wicked Witch of the West, flying on a broom. Other appearances: on a 1976 episode of the American television program, Sesame Street, the witch, once again played by Hamilton herself, drops her broom and falls onto the street. In order to get the broom back, she must prove that she can be nice. Everyone is scared of her, except for Oscar the Grouch and Big Bird. After she proves that she is nice, Big Bird is upset when the time comes for her to leave. She reassures him that one day she'll return. The episode was poorly received by parents of frightened young children, and was never aired again. The fate of the footage is unknown. Hamilton also played this witch in the Paul Lynde Halloween special, and reprised her roles several times on stage, most notably at the St. Louis Municipal Opera. Hamilton also appeared as herself on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. In this appearance, she demonstrated how her costume and acting skills made her appear to be the witch, and assured her young viewers that there was nothing about her to be feared, because her portrayal in the film was only make-believe. 2013 film, Mila Kunis portrays the Wicked Witch of the West, who is named Theodora, in the 2013 Disney film as the Great and Powerful. In this version, she is portrayed as a good witch, also being the younger sister of Evanora, who is at war with Glinda for control of Oz. She wants nothing more than for peace to come back to their land. She falls in love with Oscar Diggs, but her feelings for him are one-sided. Theodora wanted to be Oscar's queen when he ruled Oz. After Oscar goes to meet with Glinda, Evanora tricks Theodora into thinking Oscar had betrayed her. Theodora cries and her skin is burnt by her own tears, an indication of the Wicked Witch's weakness to water. Evanora gives her an apple that she claims will remove all heartache, but it removes all remaining good in Theodora's heart. It also turns her skin green. Though Evanora offers to cover it with an enchantment, Theodora embraces her new appearance and helps her sister attempt to kill Glinda, get revenge on Oscar, and take control of Oz. However, she and Evanora are defeated by Oscar's illusions. Theodora is forced to flee the city on her broom, but she threatens to return. Oscar tells her he knows her wickedness is not her doing and if she ever finds the goodness within her, she is welcome to return. However, she refuses and flies off to the west, vowing revenge. Once upon a time, the Wicked Witch of the West appears as the main antagonist in the second half of Season 3 of Once Upon a Time, played by Rebecca Mader. This version goes by the name of Zlina. In Slavic languages, Zlina means green. Zlina is discovered as the daughter of Cora, making her the older, long-lost half-sister of the evil Queen Regina. In a letter written by Rumpelstiltskin, it is also revealed that she is more powerful than both Cora and Regina, which was further enhanced by her magical pendant. Her mother had her sent away to the land of Oz, because Zlina wasn't born into royalty and Prince Leopold's gardener Jonathan had posed as a prince to seduce young Cora. Her baby basket was found by a poor couple that lived near the Emerald City. Upon learning the truth about where she came from her adoptive father, Zlina was granted an audience with the Wizard of Oz of that time. The Wizard of Oz enabled Zlina to travel to Rumpelstiltskin's castle to get something from him. Upon meeting Rumpelstiltskin, Zlina was trained in her magic to see if she will be a possible caster of the Dark Curse. Unfortunately for Zlina, Rumpelstiltskin chose Regina to enact the Dark Curse. Upon returning to the land of Oz, she told the Wizard of Oz everything and wants him to send her back to deal with Regina. The Wizard of Oz couldn't do that since he has two limits. Zlina retaliated to this by unveiling the Wizard of Oz to be a failing circus performer named Walsh, who stated that him showing Zlina the vision of Regina is his true magic. Zlina states that Walsh is useless to him in his current state and transforms Walsh into a flying monkey. Afterwards, Zlina turned green as the result of her envy over Regina. Her envy caused her to go insane, plotting to alter history. Zlina is then approached by Glinda, who thanked her for exposing Walsh. Glinda then takes her to meet her real sisters at the heart of Oz in order to help govern the 4 countries in the land of Oz. Glinda puts Zlina through a trial to forget her envy, which got rid of her green skin. Zlina and Glinda later meet Dorothy Gale after a tornado dropped her house in the east. Zlina and Glinda brought her to the heart of Oz as a guest. Zlina learned of a prophecy that involved somebody defeating her and thought it was Dorothy, causing her to turn green again. When Zlina tried a fire attack on Dorothy, she threw water on Zlina as she melted and Glinda thanked Dorothy. However, Zlina's apparent death was faked, as she reassembled herself after Glinda and Dorothy left. Zlina later posed as the Wizard of Oz in order to get Dorothy Gale back to Kansas. Afterwards, Glinda discovered that Zlina was posing as the Wizard of Oz in order to get Dorothy Gale out of the way. When Glinda stated that she'll find a way to have the prophecy fulfilled, Zlina used her magic to banish Glinda to the Enchanted Forest. After taking over the evil queen's castle, she sends her flying monkeys to obtain the blood of the evil queen. In the episode Witch Hunt, Zelena tells Regina of their familial relationship. In her storybook form, Zelena says that she is a midwife and wants to help Mary Margaret with her pregnancy. She is also shown to have Rumpelstiltskin trapped in her basement following his apparent death. In the episode The Tower, Emma, Mary Margaret, and David theorize that the Wicked Witch created the new curse that brought them from their world back to Storybrooke. They find her house and basement, with no sign of Rumpelstiltskin. Unfortunately, she couldn't hide her secret identity for long as Rumpelstiltskin, who was just recovering from the madness she inflicted him, revealed to Emma that Zelena was the Wicked Witch, right before she took full control of his body with the help of the Dark One's dagger. Following the death of Neil, Zelena issued a magic duel to Regina near the Storybrooke clock tower. Both of them were evenly matched where Zelena knocked Regina into the clock tower. Desiring to take Regina's heart to enact her plot, she finds that Regina's heart isn't in her, causing Zelena to retreat, while vowing to take everything that Regina had away from her. Using Rumpelstiltskin, Zelena steals Regina's heart from Robin Hood. As Regina tries to invoke Cora's spirit in order to learn why she gave of Zelena, the plans of Zelena are made known where she plans to cast a time travel spell to go back in time in order to make sure that Regina is never born. In order for her to invoke a time travel spell, Zelena gathers components including the knowledge of Rumpelstiltskin, Regina's heart and Prince Charming's broken sword. The final component for the time travel spell will be Mary Margaret's baby once it is born, representing innocence. As Zelena claims Mary Margaret's baby, she has Rumpelstiltskin draw the circle for the time travel spell. Emma Swan and her allies work to prevent Zelena from activating the spell. Upon Regina learning light magic and the Dark One's dagger being reclaimed, Zelena was defeated as Regina removes Zelena's pendant. Regina used the Dark One's dagger to keep Rumpelstiltskin from exacting his revenge on Zelena, who is then locked up at the Storybrooke Sheriff Department. After giving Belle the fake Dark One's dagger, Rumpelstiltskin visited Zelena in her cell to exact his revenge for what Balefire had to do to revive him. Rumpelstiltskin then stabs Zelena with the Dark One's dagger, which causes her to turn into clay, shatter, and dissolve into green dust. Then, Zelena's confiscated pendant glowed green in the box as a green, cloud-like form of Zelena was released from it, which immediately heads to the circle that was to be used for the time travel spell, before being used as the final ingredient to generate the time travel portal. It is later revealed that this was the last of Zelena's magic, as she did not survive Rumpelstiltskin's murder attempt. Later works, in Alexander Milantievich-Volkov's 1939 novel The Wizard of the Emerald City, her given name is Barstinda. March Lorme uses this name for the witch in his books. Like in the 1939 movie, she is the sister of the Wicked Witch of the East. Sherwood Smith uses this name for a new Wicked Witch of the West in her 2005 book The Emerald Wand of Oz. On the 1969 LP vinyl Songs from the Wizard of Oz, produced by Disneyland Records, the Wicked Witch of the West is given the name Smarmy, and sings the song Just Call Smarmy. The record features both original songs and songs from the 1939 MGM film. In The Wiz and its film version, the Wicked Witch of the West is given the name Eveline. She is the malevolent ruler of the Winkies. She is the sister of Adaptation, Glinda, and Evermean, the other three witches of Oz. In the film version, she runs a sweatshop under Yankee Stadium with the slogan "Manufacturers and Exporters of Sweat," and extracts it not only from the Winkies, but the Crows, the Poppy Girls, and the Subway Peddler. Her magic creates urban variations on the Kaleidors, Fighting Trees, and the Wolves, all in the subway system. She then sends the Flying Monkeys to capture Dorothy and her friends. Eveline is vanquished when Dorothy sets off the sweatshop sprinkler system. In Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo's 1981 episode Scooby's Trip to AHZ, the witch appears as the Wicked Witch of the North by Southeast. In the anime film The Wizard of Oz, the witch is purple-skinned, white-haired, and wears an eye patch similar to W. W. Denlow's original illustration. However, her telescopic eye is replaced by a magic mirror. Her soldiers are completely magical, disappear at her demise, and are quite distinct from the Winkies, whom she uses only for labor. She wears an old-fashioned peasant dress and possesses a staff, through which she generates her magic. In the 1986 anime series The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, the witch is purple-skinned once again, and has long white hair with a blood-like red streak. She possesses both eyes and is dressed in a long, black hooded gown. Her eyes have the power to turn people into stone, and turn blood red when such transformations are effected. One of the Winkies actually tries to crush her to death with a huge boulder, but the witch causes the boulder to disappear, and turns the man into stone. Like in the 1982 anime film, a magic mirror shows her everything she wishes to uncover. The Wicked Witch makes it clear to Dorothy that the Good Witch of the North's Kiss cannot serve as protection from her apparently superior power, and it's the silver shoes that safeguard the girl. The witch also reveals that the Wicked Witch of the East was her sister, and that the silver shoes could triple her own powers. This version gives the witch the most prolonged and dramatic death scene of all versions. It also differs from previous adaptations by suggesting that Mumbai was her proto-copyright Gar copyright. In the animated series The Wizard of Oz by DC Enterprises, the flying monkeys that were loyal to the Wicked Witch of the West perform a ritual that resurrects the Wicked Witch of the West, where they place her hat, dress and cloak on an effigy. Afterwards, she terrorizes Oz again by tarnishing the Emerald City, stealing what Dorothy's friends treasure the most, and making the wizard fly off course in his hot air balloon by creating an evil wind. Of course, she still has a weakness to any type of water, causing her to evade at all times. The series was cancelled before an ending could be produced, so her fate remains a mystery. This incarnation of the character was clearly based on the 1939 MGM movie, to which the series itself served as an unofficial sequel, although the witch's garments are purple here rather than black. The witch appears in a little-known 1995 version of the original story made for British cable television, which combined elements of Baum's original story, the 1939 movie, and the 1985 semi-sequel Return to Oz. She first appears after Dorothy lands in Oz, demands to know where the ruby slippers are, threatens Dorothy, then leaves. The Munchkins then reveal they hid the slippers to keep the witch from getting them, force them onto Dorothy, who then leaves to find the wizard. At the end of the film, after taking the slippers while Dorothy is sleeping, the witch turns her loose in a room full of large rocks, says she's turned Dorothy's companions into rocks themselves, and will give her 3 chances to pick which ones are her friends, but if she guesses wrong, she will become one herself. To be fair, she turns the slippers into a rock and hides them in the room. Dorothy, however, manages to find the Tin Woodsman, Scarecrow and Cowardly Lion. The witch, enraged, grows to giant-sized and holds a boulder over Dorothy, who then finds the slippers and wishes for the witch to lose her power. The witch loses her strength and falls backwards, and the boulder kills her instantly. In the 1995 television special The Wizard of Oz in Concert, Dreams Come True, a staged musical based on the 1939 film, Deborah Winger portrays the witch. In addition, Winger narrates the tornado scene including Miss Gulch's transformation. It is known the cyclone in the soundtrack. In the February 1996 episode What Are You Thinking? Of Mighty Morphin Alien Rangers, a witch monster appears by the name of Witchblade, and she seems to be modeled after the Wicked Witch. Her voice and cackle are reminiscent of the 1939 film's portrayal of the witch. Additionally, most of her lines are paraphrasings of the witch's lines, such as, "How about a little fire, Rangers?" She also refers to the Ranger Zords as Tin Men, and to the Rangers as My Pretties. When she's defeated, she cries, "Oh, no! I'm falling, falling! What a world!" Gregory Maguire's September 1996 revisionist novel Wicked, The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West takes the familiar Oz story and inverts it, with the Wicked Witch as the novel's protagonist and Dorothy as a hapless child. The name is retained in the hit musical version, and soon-to-be film Wicked. In Anthology of Interest 2, a 2002 episode of the animated television series Futurama, Leela is knocked unconscious and dreams about being Dorothy in a version of The Wizard of Oz, with Futurama characters playing the roles of wizard characters. While Ferry is the Scarecrow, Bender the Robot is the Tin Man, and Dr. Zoidberg is the Lion, The Wicked Witch is played by Mum, a recurring antagonist from the show, voiced by Tress MacNeille, who also provided the voice for the Wicked Witch of the West in the 1990 DIC animated series. The witch sends her flying monkeys, played by Mum's sons Larry, Walt, and Ina, to capture Dorothy Leland. At the witch's castle, she reveals that she wants to adopt Dorothy as her daughter, and Dorothy Leland agrees, as long as she gets to be a witch too. The witch Mum meets her fate when Tin Man Bender opens a celebratory bottle of champagne and accidentally sprays her with it, melting her. Later, after Dorothy Leland uses the power of her ruby boots to become the new Wicked Witch of the West, water splashes down on her from the ceiling, causing her to melt as well, to which the cowardly lobster Zoidberg descends the stairs, mentioning, "I think there's a problem with your upstairs toilet." In The Muppets Wizard of Oz, Miss Piggy plays all of the witches of Oz, including the Wicked Witch of the West. Her basic attire evoked W. W. Denlow's original illustration, with a biker theme. The eye patch also covered a magical glass eye that gave her visual powers. This version of the Wicked Witch is only vulnerable to tap water, where she is able to bathe in bottled water. Miss Piggy's other role is herself. Prior to Dorothy's journey, she appears with Kermit and tries to get rid of Dorothy. After Dorothy's return, she returns for the Muppets show. In the American television show Supernatural, the Wicked Witch appears as the villain of the episode Slumber Party, where she comes to Earth in 1935 with a plan to get the key to Oz and bring her army to Earth to take over. Dorothy Gale, who is in fact the daughter of L. Frank Baum, becomes a monster hunter to stop the witch, but is unable to kill her. Dorothy binds herself and the witch together, but both are accidentally released in 2013, and the witch begins searching for the key to continue her plan, possessing Sam and Dean Winchester to kill Dorothy, who she can't hurt. The witch nearly succeeds, but is killed by Charlie Bradbury with the ruby slippers. In the October 2007 VeggieTales episode The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, the witch and her Kansas counterpart from the 1939 film are replaced by Chester the Bully and Bobby the Bully, both portrayed by Gordon from Bully Trouble. In the December 2007 sci-fi miniseries Tin Man, the character of Azcadelia is analogous with the Wicked Witch of the West, though she is vastly different from most other versions of the character. In the miniseries, she is portrayed as a member of the royal family of the Oz, who is possessed as a young girl by the spirit of the evil Witch of the Dark, who uses her body to take over the Oz and plunge it into a world of permanent darkness. This adaptations version of Dorothy Gale is Azcadelia's younger sister DG. Both of the sisters are powerful witches themselves, though DG has to relearn all of her magical abilities, and once DG frees Azcadelia from the witch's grip, both of them defeat her together. Although it is clear that Azcadelia is analogous with the Wicked Witch of the West, it is implied vaguely that the Witch of the Dark is the Wicked Witch that Dorothy, who makes an appearance as a spirit in a mausoleum, defeated in the original story. In Dorothy of Oz, a career made by Sun Hee-jun, the Witch of the West is reimagined as a scientist who rules over the Western Dominion. She is psychopathic and cruel, and in a twist, she is the true orchestrator of the death of the East Witch Celuria. She is the creator of an army of clones, one of whom is the story's equivalent of the Scarecrow. Whether or not this is a reference to the musical Wicked is unknown. The Wicked Witch of the West appears as the primary antagonist of the 2012 television series Dorothy and the Witches of Oz, played by Eliza Swenson. In flashbacks, it was seen that she had obtained the mystical Book of Miniara from the wizard as part of a deal not to continue her attack on Oz, in exchange that the wizard doesn't plan to reclaim the book. Unfortunately for the Wicked Witch of the West, the wizard entrusted the key to the Book of Miniara to Dorothy for safekeeping. On Earth, she assumes the form of a female book publishing agent named Billy Westbrook and plans to obtain an artifact that Dorothy was entrusted into holding on to by the wizard so that she can lead Princess Langwidere, the Nome King, and an army of winged monkeys, gnomes and dragons into taking over Earth upon learning the changing word. The Wicked Witch of the West also had plans to invade Wonderland, Neverland, Camelot, and Narnia. References